This is my studio, my study. It's full of books. Most of the books are by people who are dead. And I think those are the best books, but not a lot of authors actually make it that far. Most authors, we stop reading after they die. But when I was 19 years old, I read a chapter of a book called The Spirit of the Disciplines, and I thought, this is really good. And I went on and I read all of the other books by this author who died in 2013. And now, 2024, people are still reading this person's books. In fact, I think more people are reading this person's books now than were reading them back when he was alive. And that is a rare thing. And so when people ask me what they should read, I inevitably come around to one name, and that is Dallas Willard. Hey everybody, welcome to the Sanctus Forum. I am Michael Stewart Robb. That's me, better known as Mike. And here on the Sanctus Forum, we talk about books and everyday spirituality, especially for Europeans, people who live on the continent of Europe, though you don't have to in order to watch the videos and be connected with Sanctus. If you are interested in being more connected or knowing that there are new videos that are free, or maybe a course or a retreat that's happening, you should go to sanctus.institute and sign up for our newsletter, and then you'll get some news. Now, this video today is going to be a reissue of a video that I did many years ago, almost 5 years ago, on what to read first when you read Dallas Willard. And I know that video went out and it helped a whole lot of people, but I think today it needs a little bit more nuancing. So this is going to be the 2024 edition of that question. And we're going to have to figure out, first of all, what books Dallas Willard actually wrote, and also where the books came from. So where did they come from? Well, Dallas Willard primarily thought of himself as a speaker.
Would you help me welcome Dallas Willard?
So when he moved to LA in 1965, he would be invited to speak for various audiences, some Christian, some non-Christian, some in church, some at the university, some at the Lions Club or something like that. Lots of different topics. And in the back of that room, there was probably somebody who was running a cassette recorder. And then out of that would come something like this. This is a Dallas Willard original cassette. This one was written, titled by hand from 1977. And Dallas Willard would talk about various things. He would sometimes talk in series. And what would happen is then somebody in the publishing world would get their hands on this series, and they would come to Dallas and they would say, hey, that would make a really good book. Can you write it for us? And he would say, no, I'm flattered, but I've got my work to do at USC, and I've got all these people that I'm meeting and all the speaking that I'm doing, and no, sorry. But a couple times, 5 times, he did say yes. The first time he said yes was for a book that was published in 1984, so he is 49 at that when that comes out. And the book came out as In Search of Guidance. Not the prettiest cover you've ever seen and not the greatest title, but if you have heard of this book, you probably have heard of it under the title of Hearing God. It has had many editions. These are the IVP editions. Here's an older In Search of Guidance. It changes a lot through the years. This is the book that fluctuates the most for Dallas Willard, and it's hard to say which one is the best. I actually have the one that I think is the best, but doesn't matter. Just grab Hearing God. That's the first one that he publishes. Doesn't actually do terribly well in sales, and the one that did do well, at least back in the 80s, was The Spirit of the Disciplines, which he published in 1988. His second book, kind of his breakout book. And then people know the name Dallas Willard. 10 years later, he publishes The Divine Conspiracy, which is probably his best book, though not necessarily the one that you should read first, maybe. After that, he publishes Renovation of the Heart. This is what it looked like back then. Probably, if you're buying it today, it will look like this in hardcover or in paperback. And then, 7 years later, he publishes Knowing Christ Today. So those 5 books, Hearing God, The Spirit of the Disciplines, The Divine Conspiracy, Renovation of the Heart, and Knowing Christ Today, those are the 5 Dallas Willard books. Those are the Willard Pentology, as I have dubbed them. Now, there's one other book that you can add to that, and that is this book, The Great Omission, which is a book of articles and talks that he gave. And Dallas Willard was alive when this came out. It was in 2006 that this came out, and he did the introduction for it and kind of supervised the writing of it. Now, Dallas Willard was also a philosopher, and I would be remiss to not tell you that there are 3 books that you can consider Dallas Willard's philosophy books. One is his dissertation, which is on microfilm. If you are a library person, you want to read something in microfilm. The second one is also not terribly easy to get, perhaps a little bit easier than microfilm, Logic and the Objectivity of Knowledge. This comes out in 1984, the same year as In Search of Guidance does. And then he was writing this when he died, The Disappearance of Moral Knowledge. He wrote most of it, but then 3 of his students had to finish it for him. It comes out in 2018. So 3 books, really only one of them a real book, which is rather difficult to get. In philosophy, the way to approach Dallas Willard is certainly through the 60 articles that he wrote, and you can find a lot of these online. Some of them you'll need a good library for. Now, I take it that most people watching this aren't interested in philosophy, but I hope that some are. This can all be very confusing because Dallas Willard's name appears on all sorts of books, not just the ones that I mentioned here and the philosophy ones. And if you need some help sorting that out, that's why we created at the Sanctus Institute this book called Something to Say, a comprehensive bibliography of Dallas Willard. And this has everything. Almost everything. There are a couple articles that are missing. We probably need a new edition of this, but everything from all of those recordings that started all of the books to all of those 60 plus philosophy articles, reviews that he did, all of the books are in there. It's all in this, and you can get this for free through the Sanctus Institute. I think it's free for donors. I know it's free for donors who give $25 or euros. And I always have to add, we can only guarantee shipping to Europe and the United States. But if you live further abroad or somewhere else, write to us at info@sanctus.institute, and we'd love to find a way to accommodate you getting this book for free by becoming one of our donors, so-called friends of Sanctus. This was not meant to be an advertisement for this book. I do want to answer this question here about what to read first when you read Dallas Willard. And my answer to that is, it depends on who you are. If you are somebody who is an educated, well-read sort of person, you went to a university and did things in theology perhaps, or then you should probably just pick the book that interests you the most. That might actually be this book, Knowing Christ Today, which is going to talk about how we have knowledge of the Christian religion. Another approach would be to go for the Divine Conspiracy. That is one of the ones that would be quite helpful to start with if you are a kind of educated reader. Now, if you are not, if you're more of a beginner, if you've heard about Dallas Willard from some other more simple book that you are reading, One way to approach it is to go to The Great Omission, and this is the simplest of the books that Dallas Willard produced in his lifetime. But where I often send most people, even if they are educated, is to Dallas Willard audio. We have so much audio of him, recorded lectures, and this is, like I said, where Dallas Willard is Dallas Willard.
It's a pleasure to be here this evening.
This is where he is doing his thing, which is speaking, teaching to audiences. These are not super well polished rhetorical messages. If you're looking for somebody who's just going to wow you with stories and one-liners, then this is not the place. This is the place to really be able to think and be taught by a person who knows what it means to work with the Spirit. And what I would do is I would go over to conversatio.org and I would look for a series called A Series on What Jesus Believed and Taught and Lived. You just go to the search function and look for that, and you will find a very excellent series of 8 talks which Dallas Willard gave in 1990. But you can look for whatever you're interested in, whatever seems to strike your fancy. He talked about all sorts of things in the many years in which he was active, and that is where I would start with Dallas Willard. If you are more philosophically inclined and even like that deep stuff, then reading logic and the objectivity of knowledge, or getting into some of those articles, that would be an excellent way to approach Dallas Willard. One of the things is Dallas Willard did like writing these books. He was good at writing them, but he really was a philosopher full time, and the philosophy can be really, really excellent. Not everybody needs to be reading philosophy, but if you are one of those people, go for it. Go for it. So that's my answer to what you should read first when you read Dallas Willard in 2024. Thanks for being here. Show up next time for the next video. Check out Sanctus.Institute for everything that we're doing. Bye then. I was given a chapter. I am Michael Stewart Robb, better known as Mike, on the Sanctus Forum. Bloop. Sign up for our almost monthly newsletter so that you can be informed about books.